Thanks to SPMH for its monetary contribution, its board members for their unbelievable dedication, and to these people who share the story of SPMH's involvement in the renovation.
A little bit of background is appropriate here. 5 years after the close of the Civil War, this iconic building was built. And through the years, there have been any number of renovations, any number of modifications to the building, but it had reached a point where we have been asked, well, why didn't we just tear the building down and start all over again? The answer is always the same. We don't do that. We're Cincinnati. I want to speak for a moment about the Society for the Preservation of Music Hall. For more years than I can remember, that organization has been imbued with one specific focus: to make absolutely certain that Music Hall is the best it can possibly be. And they certainly have stepped up in this renovation, giving us millions of the philanthropic work we need to complete this project.
Mr. and Mrs. Corbett were pretty amazing people. They felt very strongly that the community in which they lived should be the beneficiary of their largesse if they had enough money to give it away. They therefore took part in not only giving money to Music Hall during their lives, but to seeing that it was spent properly. They wanted to make sure that Music Hall remained one of the finest music presentation facilities in the world. In her final gifts, Mrs. Corbett earmarked 6 organizations, and she described to each of them what she wanted that money to go for. In the case of Music Hall, she donated a percentage of her final gifts, and those final gifts totaled almost $50 million. A percentage of that went to the Society for Preservation of Music Hall to be used for the maintenance and continued improvement of Music Hall as a high-quality performance facility. And she would be thrilled to see the donations that the SPMH has made toward the building's renovation that's now being unveiled in Cincinnati.
The Society for Preservation of Music Hall started in the late 80s by a group of dedicated volunteers and community citizens to really focus on the preservation of Music Hall, to make sure that the hall was taken care of and that there was a continuing education process for the community, so that SPMH's job was to promote and help preserve Music Hall. And this involvement with citizens and the community goes back to the beginning of the hall. In the very beginning, Reuben Springer, who started the building of the hall, wanted to make sure that the entire community was involved. So the current renovation of Music Hall has been incredible. And the renovation was designed to focus on making Music Hall a modern, up-to-date venue for not only the audience, but for all the performers and the employees.
I love Music Hall because it has so many myths and legends and ghost stories. But when you do research on this building, there's 140 years worth of true stories and facts about this building that are more exciting than the myths and the legends. In the 70s, the black brick had been sandblasted away, lost its patina, and it's so exciting that SPMH is bringing this architectural element back and restoring this and bringing back that high Victorian Gothic glory that was stripped off the face of this building and bringing it back, and I'm so excited about that. Other elements are the finials that were on every single gable of this building, and the only one left, the only complete one left, is to the right of the rose window. And it's so exciting that SPMH is going to get a cast and then get that mold made and return all those finials back to the top of Music Hall. And the 3 arched windows below the rose window, they've been missing for years. And thank goodness SPMH is involved in bringing back the real face of Music Hall.
Music Hall is a unique building, not like any other in the world. And so the architecture, the design, and then doing the investigations and finding out what was here and then seeing it put back. So that's, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. And that's, you know, complete and total satisfaction. I love coming to work every day because we're doing, you know, we're actually bringing back what was here and preserving it. And this is my hometown, so there's also the hometown pride thing, which doesn't hurt. You know, so this is the place where everyone comes together and they have a shared experience on the stage, but something that the audience creates for what happens on the stage. And it also, so that's what takes place inside the building. But the exterior of the building has a character and of its own, which adds to the sense of place. So that is in a certain way owned by everybody who lives in the city or in the surroundings, not just the people who use the interior. In Corbett Tower, there was a false ceiling. And in 2011, we were able to kind of stick our heads up and shine a flashlight, and oh, there's stenciling up here, you know, what is it, right? And then ultimately when they removed that false ceiling, we got a scaffold up there, we were able to get right up to it, document it. The decision was made to replicate all the stencils.
The 1878 organ was the largest organ in the United States, one of the most important organs in the world. And because of its importance in the music world, it demanded a comparable type of organ screen, decorative in every way and beautiful to match the organ. Most of the carvers, the original carvers, were women. Most of them were affluent and they did not want to take any kind of money for their work. These organ panels are actually the only elements in the original 1878 Music Hall. So in my mind, these organ panels are as important as the bricks and the mortar of the building. And SPMH took this project on. This was the people's organ, and this was the organ of Cincinnati.
Let's spend a little time talking about the history of Music Hall's mighty Wurlitzer organ. The Wurlitzer company itself was headquartered here in Cincinnati, but our organ, the mighty Wurlitzer here in Music Hall, was actually manufactured in New York, and it was installed in the Albee Theater downtown. Christmas Eve 1927, just in time for talkies, which meant the Wurlitzer organ was sort of going out of business as it was installed. In about mid-2016, the owners of the organ, the Ohio Valley chapter of the American Theater Organ Society, came to us and asked us if we would take a gift from them of this organ. And then about 2010, we realized it wasn't doing much. It was beautiful, it's talented, it's got so much ability sitting in the Music Hall ballroom. So I like to say we put on our Mickey Rooney outfit and said, let's put on a show.
So CAA's role as facility manager involves the daily operations of the building. So SPMH for us is a critical partner in that part of the operation, but also in planning for the future of the building. So it'd be hard to understate the contributions of SPMH towards Music Hall. They're one of the very few, if not the only entity that's really exclusively focused on that mission. So for us in building operations, they're there to help us take care of the building, both in the short term and in the long.
As our name suggests, the Society for the Preservation of Music Hall's primary focus and mission is to preserve Music Hall. And that's what's happening right now. This wonderful $140 million project to which SPMH has contributed well over $4 million is entirely consistent with our mission. It promotes our mission of preserving Music Hall. We're bringing many elements of the hall back to life that have been buried or hidden since the 1950s and 60s.
So many of us have contributed to the most recent renovation of Cincinnati's Music Hall. History shows us that this beautiful and purposeful building was intended as an investment by Cincinnatians for Cincinnatians, beginning with Pennies in a Jar by local school children. The Society for the Preservation of Music Hall is dedicated to maintaining this national landmark for all of us to utilize and enjoy in the years to come. Cherish the past, protect the future.